Welcome to the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. Over 90% of today's home buyers start their buyer journey online. Here we talk with not only industry experts, but also your fellow home builder marketers to learn how you can succeed in our incredibly competitive digital world. And now, here are your hosts, Greg Bray and Kevin Weitzel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. I'm Greg Bray with Blue Tangerine.
And I'm Kevin Weitzel with Outhouse.
And we are excited to have joining us today, Gabriela Cortesia. Gabriela is the VP of Marketing at CastleRock Communities. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks to you for inviting me.
Well, let's start off by just getting to know a little bit about your background and history. Give us that quick overview about yourself.
Well, I've been here in the States for a little over 10 years. And about the same time here in CastleRock, I worked in Ryland before that. Before that, just different industries, right? Bank, lawyer firms, and you name it, advertising agencies. So it's been a good ride.
So we're going to jump into a bunch of stuff, digital marketing and adjacent. However, before that, could we have an interesting factoid about you that has nothing to do with work, the home building industry, or family?
Interesting fact, I guess, could be that I'm Venezuelan. Of course, you could have never guessed with this accent. In a previous life, I was a dancer and I love arts. And maybe that's why I have this interest on design and marketing. I don't know, hopefully that's interesting, but dancing like in flamenco.
So flamenco dancing?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Wow, that is a lot of work too. I tried one of those Fred Astaire classes one time, and I think I actually do have two left feet because I just kept stepping on my girlfriend's toes and my beat wasn't matching the music. So
I would pay to see that.
I would pay to see that too. I think we should take up a collection and see who else will pay to see that. Well, Gabrielle, tell us a little bit more about your journey into home building. You said you started in some other types of industries. What got you into new construction?
Well, once I came here to the States, that was the first opportunity that was presented to me to work in the home building industry. It was fun. I realized that all my English classes did not cover what a crown molding was. But, you know, I got to learn a lot about the industry in the first few months. And then, again, being here in CastleRock and building the team, because it was just me when I started 10 years ago, building the team and the different areas, and up to now having kind of like a boutique advertising agency here internally, it's been a really interesting and fulfilling ride. It's been touching every little aspect of home building on the marketing side, of course, and design, I guess, a little. It has been very interesting to also live through different market changes. Of course, COVID, who would have imagined, right? If there is anything that I can say about my day-to-day life, it's that it's always changing from the basics to the wish list items every day in every area of the marketing department.
So before we get too far into it, tell us just a little bit more about CastleRock Communities, where you guys are building and the types of buyers that you are working with.
We are a Texas home builder by history. We've been here over 20 years. 21 years, I guess, at this point. We are in Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Texas, but the last few years, we acquired a couple of builders in Arizona and Tennessee. So we are expanding. And of course, like any other builder, our intent is to continue growing in the markets we're at and different markets, of course.
I have a question for you. Since you have acquired some other companies, the philosophy varies from one major entity to another. What is your idea or thoughts on, do you completely rebrand that brand or do you let that brand stand as a standalone? I kind of have an opinion on it both ways. I can lean either way. What direction did you guys take and what was the reasoning behind it?
I would love to hear your thoughts because I'm sure you've heard some other companies' experiences, but we've handled it differently for the two companies we acquired. So in Arizona, it was just a couple of communities that we were acquiring. And from there, we've grown with the CastleRock brand. So it was a more direct switch. We immediately switched everything to the CastleRock brand. The team came and joined and got trained on how we do things. With the Jones Company in Tennessee, we had a little softer approach. We leveraged from their brand because they had been in business for decades before we acquire them in the market. So we ended up changing to the Jones by CastleRock Communities. We, of course, put signs up and design the whole site with the idea that now the Jones Company was part of the CastleRock family. We did that for about a year until we transitioned later to the CastleRock brand, and now we are just promoting ourselves as CastleRock. We did leverage that brand, and again, this is just my perception. That softer approach might be good for the brand, but maybe tougher for the employees, because then that transition, instead of understanding like, look, things have changed and now we're doing things this way, it is tough to still say that we are the Jones, but then we're CastleRock as well. When I worked in a bank back in Venezuela, the government intervened the bank. And it was upsetting because those walls that used to be blue, because that was the brand of the bank, next week would be red. And then the following week, something else, small changes every week that I feel were harsh, because then you didn't know what to expect the following week. So I can relate to that slow change being kind of like, what is the scenario going to be? So I guess it really depends on strategy, on the brand, but that has been my experience from my chair on those two different acquisitions. What are your thoughts?
Well, since you asked, so here's where I stand on that. I think that there's a philosophy and a strategy for both avenues. Avenue one is if you have somebody that has strong brand name recognition, you don't want to just overturn that apple cart. Either make a slow transition like you guys did, where you added a by CastleRock Communities. That way you can leverage the strength that that brand name association already has. However, being that I'm a firm believer in making marketing outreach consistent, and having brand consistency across all channels and all venues and all verticals and all laterals, I mean, you name it, I want brand consistency everywhere. Because there's tons of research that would support that once you have that brand name recognition, that you want to leverage that everywhere in every avenue that you can. So as much as I'd love to keep the endearing, Billy Bob's Home Building Company name, what it really comes down to is it is more beneficial in the long game to rebrand everything to that one parent company.
Yeah, it definitely opens the door to the question of what is the value of brand? Where is that line of two brands coming together? Are they equal value? Is one like way differently valued? And of course, it's based on investment and time and awareness in the community and things like that. You don't want to just throw it out if there's value. You have to figure out how to leverage that.
And Greg, is it a strategic business unit or is it an enveloped part of a company? To expand on that, you take somebody like Warren Buffett, where he acquires companies all over the place. And when he acquires companies, he wants to keep the name, he wants to keep everything, because it is just a specialty business unit on a spreadsheet. It is something on a balance sheet that he looks at to say that, these different entities are producing this type of revenue. Whereas from some of the land seas out there, which is now what, the New Home Co. or whatever. But when you have companies like that are acquiring companies, it is growing their footprint of the actual entity itself. So that's where the major difference is going to come in. Is it a spreadsheet line item, or is it actually part of the whole conglomeration?
It's a tough one for marketers, though. And Gabrielle,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you might not have had the final say in all of those decisions either.
No, it was definitely a strategic decision. Of course, we thought about it, discussed it. The decision was made differently because it is, like you guys say, a case-by-case scenario, depending on strategy for the brand or the specific market. So there's not a one way to go here. I think both have value, and even though I have personal experience with some of them, I think that it did benefit us having the brand for the Jones. And we, of course, use every channel again for that brand consistency that you, Kevin, are mentioning, because we were trying to have both logos and still keep somehow the consistency of the brand. So it was more expensive and more intense for sure, because then you have two transitions instead of one, but beneficial. So it was very interesting to leave.
So Gabriela, going back to something you said a few minutes ago, you talked about when you came to CastleRock that you had the opportunity to then build a team, and you've grown that almost into your own agency of players. Talk us through that journey a little bit more. Where did you decide to start? Which positions were most important for you to have in-house? When did you decide we're going to partner with somebody or we're going to hire? What were some of those moments like along that journey?
Well, at some point I was wearing too many hats, right? Because we marketeers tend to have different fronts to take care of. So I was the marketing coordinator, the marketing manager, the internet sales consultant. So that was the very first two positions, I guess, we looked into. So we explored first on having a mix between marketing coordinator and internet sales person. And then we separated that to two different positions. And then we realized we needed more coverage. So we hired the second and third internet sales consultant later. And then the marketing coordinator was great at marketing, but then we needed someone to support the graphic portion of it. We are now a team of 10 people, which has been life-changing, of course. We take care of all 7 markets we're at right now from here, centralized. It makes it much easier because we know the history of the brand. We are consistent, again, to Kevin's point, across all markets, not only on the look, but also on the strategy. So it's been a great experience to grow the team, but it has been evolving step by step. First on the marketing, internet sales, graphics, renderings. We do our renderings here in-house, design. So I've explored to do design since I've had some of the team doing the marketing day-to-day life. So it has been evolving over the 10 years that I've been here.
Where do your internet sales people sit today? Are they part of the marketing department? Are they part of the sales team? Are they somewhere in the middle? How have you defined that role?
Well, they are in the marketing department, and we very closely work with the sales team, not only on the internet sales side, but also on the marketing side. So we are part of operations, of course, and our day-to-day life is serve sales, whether it is setting up appointments with buyers and calls or preparing material for them to go to their business. So they are, as of now, sitting in my department. And I think that's a great position to be at because, again, we're here to serve.
I like the way you've defined that. Our job in marketing is to deliver the leads, right? And that can include making appointments for those leads. A lot of builders, I see that online sales consultant, internet sales consultant sitting under the sales team. Sometimes they're in this weird in-between space. They kind of float around and nobody's quite sure what to do with them. It's kind of interesting to hear your perspective.
Well, it has been great because then we support them, right? We support the internet sales team. We draft all the drip campaigns. We find tools for them, and we would wherever they sit. But being part of the marketing department, it feels like more comprehensive support from marketing to sales.
So when you come into the office on a Monday morning and you have those reports and numbers that you look at first thing, what are some of those key statistics or analytics data that are the most important to you that you are always kind of monitoring and checking on?
Definitely Monday morning would be sales for the weekend. And I guess not only the weekend, but the week. We meet every Monday morning, all operation heads for every area, and then every corporate operation area, so marketing and sales and closing and permitting and purchasing and accounting. So we all meet and go over sales of the week, how we are doing compared to business plan, and any hot topics we have to discuss for that particular week, whether it is training on something going on with market or rates. That's usually my Monday morning. So I'm always looking to get here with tons of coffee and my glasses on.
So besides the sales, where do you go a little deeper into some of those numbers?
I mean, on the marketing side, we closely track the funnel. So web numbers, to appointments, to engagement and appointments set, and then appointments completed or canceled. Where do we have to follow up? How traffic is compared to reported sales, because we are trying always to fill the holes through the process, through the whole funnel. That's where we in marketing focus on the numbers. Sometimes they align those numbers. Sometimes you realize there's no reported traffic for last week, but we reported 2 sales. That's where we get with the sales team, or we get with the managers, or we check ourselves what's going on. 0 appointments consistently for 2 weeks for this certain area. So if we wanted more detail, that's where we focus on.
It's actually very convenient that you said that. I assume you're tracking everything in a CRM. So how often are you looking at your numbers that are feeding to that sales side as compared to the follow-up on the sales side? Because you look at, if you have 100 leads and those 100 leads turn into, 30 appointments, those 30 appointments equal to 10 quotes or contracts, whatever you want to say, and then how many of them close. How often are you tracking, or does this fall, once it hits that threshold, it's out of your bucket, you don't have to worry about it? Or do you look at the comparison of what those sales follow-ups are as comparatively speaking to the leads that fell in their lap or that were provided to them?
We formally look at that once a month, but I have my Salesforce tab open all day long. Those reports are live. So depending on what is going on, you just refresh and look in a particular person, a particular market. I receive calls all day long from our 12 different managers, kind of like, can you check on? They can as well check, they have the same reports and the same, but it's a lot easier for them because they know I have it right there in front of me open. So I don't know, I wouldn't want to say every 5 minutes, but we are often looking at those numbers. That's what we should all be doing, right?
She sounds like she's an obsessive CRM user, Kevin.
I love data. It's just so easy these days. In a past life, when we in marketing didn't have this type of data, it was a lot more difficult for us to understand where those holes are. But today, with one click, you should be able to have a good picture of what's going on.
As you guys are working on your content creation and your messaging and all of the various parts and pieces that go into marketing, where are you starting to leverage or experiment with some of the AI tools that are out there? What are some of the ways that you've found them to be helpful? What are some things that maybe didn't work the way you had hoped or kind of wanted them to? What are some things you've learned there?
Well, definitely content creation has been really fun to poke around. It's funny though, because at this point when sales consultants are sending things our way, like, hey, I'd like to promote this event and I have this drafted. We're like, you can see all these emojis at this point and you're like, did you really write this? So it has been really fun to poke into AI. And we do encourage sales consultants to use it, of course. You still have to understand that it is a tool. It is meant to give you a practical start and a quick start, but still you cannot forget about going through it, put it on your own tone and just adapting it. Same happens with images. So I mentioned earlier that we do our renderings in-house, and AI, it's wonderful. I mean, you can see renderings from the architect's drawings, but you have to be very specific. You don't get to choose your palette at times, or you get to see, portraits on top of attic doors because it's just AI. So there is always that component of like, it'll get you 70, 80% there, but you have to fill that little gap. So that is where I feel that AI is very useful. It will get you a head start, but you have to make sure that you don't forget about the human component and you go over that, whatever result it is, whether it is images or content, you have to give your 20.
So it sounds like you've been playing with it in different areas. Are you looking at any of the processes where it like chains different steps together, or is it still more of a individual one by one kind of use? I'm just trying to understand some of those options.
We have not in the marketing department used it for processes overall just yet, just for like particular projects. But I potentially will leave this call and start looking into it.
Oh, it's awesome. It's great to hear that you guys are experimenting with it though and not running away from it.
No one should, right?
Have you had any 7-leg dog incidents where you've tried to do some things and AI's just completely dropped the ball? Because I've run into that myself.
Yes. Well, like I just told you, right? You have like a vase of flowers on top of this little door to the attic. I still think it is a great tool. A lot of it depends on the input you provide. But again, that's why I highlight that you still have to make sure that you put your 20% at the end, because you can end up with a dog with 7 legs. And that's why then I have my graphics team kind of like, okay, here's the dog. Can we fix it?
Fixing the dog means lots of different things depending on the context.
It does.
Gabriela, as you have worked with your internet sales team, being that they're in the marketing department, do you get feedback from them consistently on like, how do we improve the website to make it more clear for the buyers? What kinds of things do they find that maybe the web development team kind of missed or overlooked that the sales consultants found?
Absolutely. I remember my days as an internet sales, and I would have a tab open for every market all day long because that's what you provide. They are permanently on the website and navigating the site, and they are like, hey, this is broken, or this is not deploying as it should, or is there a way that we can add this? They are a key portion of our team because they are likely the user that it's more often on our site and the different tabs. So absolutely, they are there, and they kind of serve as, I don't know if I should throw this there, but it does kind of serve as a online mystery shopper kind of situation, because they are not the marketing team that developed the journey or the platform. Even though they are there often, they are kind of like an external, not external set of eyes looking at the website there. So they definitely help us to understand, okay, was the journey clear? Or is this an unbiased feedback? We developed it. We are too used to it. So it is always good to hear their feedback because it does help us improve for sure.
Well, and they're the ones that are dealing with the phone calls and the emails where people have questions that, well, it was right there. How come they didn't see it? You think it's right there, but it got missed for some reason. We appreciate the time that you've spent with us today, Gabriela. As we kind of wrap up, just a couple of last questions and thoughts. As you have looked at technologies and opportunities, you've been doing this now for a little while. What's the one piece that you're like, I have to have it. They can never take this away from me. It is the super duper thing that helps our buyers understand what we're doing. Is there one just piece of technology on the website or in part of your sales process that you just love and are so happy to have?
Tough question. If there was just one tool.
All right, you can have two. You can have two.
Okay, I appreciate that because that helps me out. The website is inevitably the number one tool that any company would definitely need. And with that comes all the tools that you can have on the website, all the interactive tools, the visualizers, the journey, the chat to talk to the internet sales. The website is the single most important tool that any company can have, especially in home building, because as we see new generations buying homes, they don't want to talk to a single human being until they've done their research. So a decade ago, maybe the sales track would be much longer on the sales team and very short on the marketing one. But these days, a lot of people spend much more time sitting on their computer and doing their research than only when they are ready. And they've likely made a decision, then they go to the sales office and to see the sales consultants. All that time on the sales journey or the home buying journey, they've been on the website. They've been online. They've been searching in Google, social media. So if I had to choose just one, it'd be definitely the website. That is where you qualify first.
Awesome. Love it. Well, do you have any last thoughts or words of advice that you'd like to leave with our audience today to help them with their marketing?
I feel that two things potentially we need to have very present every day. The first one is that we are here to serve sales. I understand sometimes we receive requests or we feel that we are holding their hands on some part of the process, but if we don't do it, who will? I think we are there to serve them instead of the other way around. It's very easy to lose track there. And the second one is we cannot lose perspective, put ourselves on the buyer's shoes. we have to make sure that, again, we do this research and we make sure that the journey is clear for the buyer. We need to understand how we better serve them. We are here just to connect those two. So the better we do to serve both of those ends, the better job we do.
Gabrielle, if somebody wants to connect with you and get in touch, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Oh, well, LinkedIn would be potentially the best avenue to reach out. We all have LinkedIn, and then my email or my phone will be there. So feel free to connect anytime.
Well, thank you so much again for sharing your experiences with us today. And thank you everybody for listening to the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. I'm Greg Bray with Blue Tangerine.
And I'm Kevin Weitzel with Outhouse. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about how Blue Tangerine and Outhouse can help you generate more qualified home buyer leads, visit bluetangerine.com and outhouse.net. If you've enjoyed our show today, please tell a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to join us again on the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast.